Greetings and a warm welcome from me, astrologer Patrick Arundell. Today, in the latest of my deep dive videos, I'm going to explore the evocative Cancer new moon, which occurs across the 17th or 18th of July. This could be argued to be the principal new moon of each year because the sign of Cancer is governed by the moon. But what are the other planetary players telling us about this event? What can we expect over the next 4 weeks, which is its period of influence? If you're new to my channel, thank you so much for joining us. This is very much a community. If you have any thoughts, please share them. I do try to interact with each one, and I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. I do put a lot of effort into my videos, so your support is really important to me. If you're a returning visitor, it's lovely to have you with us once more. And remember, if you want to get your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning, please see the subscription link beneath this video. Before I go on, I'd just like to share a very special opportunity with you. Year 2023 is racing by and the new year 24 is speeding towards us. If you order your year 2024 personal horoscope forecast based on your unique birth data now, I'll prepare for you the rest of year 2023 free of charge. Also, within my special package of 30% off, you'll get your character analysis report, your life roadmap, which will help you to understand the patterns that have manifested in your situation over the years and get a much more intimate understanding of how you can seize on the opportunities and work with some of those challenges. Please see the link beneath this video for more. So this event occurs when the Sun and the Moon are combined at 24 degrees and 55 minutes in Cancer. Please see on the screen now exactly where it occurs across the 17th and the 18th of July, depending on where you are in the world. Now, the Sun in Cancer is very much about nurture, our desire to be protective. We all need to have some kind of home base, and even if you're someone who sees yourself as an international traveller and quite the adventurer, we still have our relationship with our inner world, our relationship with ourselves, which is about our own personal development and how we can relate to particular environments. So the Sun in Cancer really gives us an appreciation of taking a bit of a breather from the helter-skelter transition of the Sun through Gemini, very much about chat and the sharing of ideas, just to slow things down a little bit. The sign of Cancer, as I mentioned, ruled by the Moon. So the Sun in Cancer is inherently more sensitive, and it can be very much to do with where we live, who we live with and how, but equally, as I mentioned, it can be to do with how we're feeling, how we're connecting to that inner world. So being in touch with our instincts is a big part of the opportunity of this new moon, which can help us to set our intentions around all these areas. But the environment is a big subject these days, and I feel the moon connecting to the Sun is going to raise the profile of anything to do with our waterways, which of course is a very tender topic. We're seeing a lot of effluent going into rivers and seas. We're seeing a lot of plastics collect. If we walk down the beach, I'm quite near to a beach, you get a lot of detritus building up from the sea, and it's not the old-fashioned stuff that just used to be bits of logs and twigs. There's lots of plastics particularly, which is a major worry. So we can become more conscious over the next month of that immediate environment, whether we feel at ease, whether it's peaceful, whether it's overstimulating, whether we crave for a bit more stimulation. It depends on what we're like. Anything to do with our need for space at home, or our connection to the people we choose to be our family, or the people who are our blood relatives. So all these things come sharply into focus over the next month. And if we're not fulfilling our needs in the way we want, so we don't get enough time just to meditate and just be quiet with ourselves and let our thoughts cascade down inside of us, or we're caught up in being very much nurturing and caring for others but losing a little bit of our identity through it, or there may be people around us who want us to be actually more emotional and more available to them. All different sorts of strands can come from this particular lunation. But the other thing to know about a new moon, it could be argued that you could call it the dark moon. So the symbol is a black roundel. So we can't usually see it. It's only at the time of an eclipse that we can see this particular event. But it does have an enormous impact on tides. The moon obviously very much linked to that. So we're going to see some impact in that part of the world too. But what about this particular event in terms of the solar chart? The sun and the moon in house 4, very much in keeping with that Cancerian energy, but Pluto is in opposition. It's not exact, and Pluto of course is very much about hidden truths, power, and in the sign of Capricorn it's much more to do with the material world. So we're all being made much more conscious that the cost of accommodation is something that's really in our everyday dialogue at the present time. But this new moon also has some opportunities. So whereas Pluto may see us toggling between the demands of the wider world and how it feels and our need to feel sheltered and protective, we have Uranus forging a stunning link which is asking us to think outside the box and be a bit more innovative about our resources. If you are someone who's a creator or a maker or an upcycler, or someone who wants to work from home, this is a fabulous new moon. But it does require us to perhaps evolve a little bit, do things in a fresh and different way. But Neptune in the water sign of Pisces is also linking very productively to Uranus, Pluto and the Sun-Moon conjunction. So that's asking us to listen to our instincts, which is very Cancerian. Cancers have a reputation of being maybe a little bit moody, sometimes not very available, can withhold a little bit, a very atmospheric sign, so sometimes it's not always easy for Cancerians to speak up and say how they feel. But this event also has Mars in an opposition with Saturn, and Mars is in the very practical, precise Virgo, Saturn in the emotional Pisces. So I think if we do need to say anything, we will need to choose our words carefully, because there could be a little bit of frustration if the practical side of our lives feels difficult, and that can back up in terms of how we feel. However, in terms of the natal chart based on Placidus, and as ever I always base mine on Universal Central Time and on Greenwich, that puts the Sun-Moon conjunction in the 7th house of relative and Pluto in the 1st house of the individual. So it flips round. That's really interesting. But Uranus in the 4th house, very much about our home. So being open to change things and be a bit more fluid is going to be part of how we can surf the more natal impact of this event. But Mars and Saturn are in opposition across the 8th and the 2nd houses, emphasizing the financial climate that we're dealing with. So our relationships, I think, can be affected by the uncertainty that we're experiencing. But Uranus and Neptune are saying if we listen to our instincts, are open to doing things in a fresh and different way, or being more innovative, then this gives us a chance to reset the compass of what is the basis of our existence. And that can be the security, the physical structure we live in, but equally it can be to do with our relationship with our inner world. So this can be quite the event for us all. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces, which you can relate to in terms of your sun or your ascendant. So Aries, with your ruler Mars opposed by the strict energies of Saturn across the most practical and psychological parts of your situation, If you feel a bit overwhelmed at times over the next few weeks, what this new moon is asking you to do, particularly with Neptune's support, is actually be okay with just taking a step back, doing the things that are actually very healing. It could be that you just have a lovely soak in an Epsom filled bath. It may be you can light some candles. It could be listening to some very relaxing, peaceful music. It could be going for a walk in nature, particularly if it is near some water. But also, because of Uranus in your second solar house, you could make some changes to where you live, creating some more space, or actually renewing something, approaching a situation around a family matter in a new way, particularly if something has proved a bit resistant to your charms. But just be conscious that there could be a sense of frustration if other people are not quite tuning into your emotional situation or how you feel. And probably as we go into August and the sun makes its way into Leo, I think that's when you're going to come into your own more. So I think there is a possibility that this is a new moon that's going to heighten your sensitivity to the things that aren't quite as you would like. But if you can be around water, even if you go for a lovely swim or perhaps have a spa day, those are the things that can be very restorative to you at this time. So Taurus, what this new moon is asking you to do is to combine your thinking and your everyday communication with how you feel a little bit more acutely. The British particularly are fantastic at saying, if someone asks us, "How are you doing?" "Oh, I'm absolutely fine, thanks." And we may have some kind of major crisis going on. It's just a response that's drilled into us. So I feel with the combination of the sun and the moon in your third house, but also linking to Neptune in a very idealistic part of your situation, if you are sharing ideas with people who have a very similar vision or world view, or help you to feel uplifted, that's going to be very, very helpful to you. I think in terms of your romantic situation, Mars is definitely giving you a push to demonstrate your charisma and your charm. It's just that with Saturn opposing Mars and feeding into this event, if there are any friends or associates you have that tend to be a little bit rugged or a little bit careless about how they express themselves to you, that could go in a little bit more with this set of influences. But what Uranus can do is just give you that little bit of encouragement to assert your independence, or create a bit of space from a situation or a person that isn't quite getting where you're coming from at this time. So I think your desire to express how you feel about things is given a platform. You can still express it in a fun or creative way, but I think this is quite a tender new moon. It's not just that it's in Cancer, it is because Mars is opposed by Saturn. So I think you could discover through some of your conversations, text messages or emails over the next few weeks, the people you really can relate to that help you to get into that higher dimension, and the people that seem to be a bit more workaday in their responses to you. So Gemini, for you, this event occurs in house 2, very much about foundations. An earthy kind of feel, but with that watery dimension of Cancer. So how you feel about your self-worth, but also your physical foundations in your situation, your income, is going to be really quite acutely accentuated. But Uranus is saying to you, do you have old experiences, knowledge, skill and contacts that could be brought into the present to augment that situation in a way that would add to your sense of serenity? If the answer is yes, the next phase is to give yourself permission to investigate these. Now Mars is in a part of your situation at the moment, which is good for being productive about making changes at home, but because Saturn is blocking Mars, doing that and keeping things going in the professional situation may be a bit challenging. So I feel if you are thinking about doing something rather fresh or different in terms of money making, you need to set yourself some realistic targets, because trying to do too much could actually prove to be frustrating if things don't go quite at the pace you want. The second house, where Cancer is as well, this issue with how we value ourselves, I really think it's probably one of the most deeply important parts of astrology. It can help us to understand where we may erode our own self-esteem. And because Cancer energy is very much about security, do make a list of the things that you contribute to this world, that you have, not just in a practical way, but the emotional connections you have, the people that mean a lot to you, the people that celebrate you. Make a list of those things. Raise a proverbial chalice to the emotional dimension of Cancer and celebrate your value. Cancer, the unique opportunity of this event for you is that you can spend quite a lot of time looking out for other people. And that part of your nature is one of the most adorable things of being a Cancer. But this event can help you to set your intentions and focus on your unique attributes, particularly if there is something you'd like to get off the ground, something fresh and new. The next month gives you a fab opportunity to go for it. But also, if there are ongoing strands, I feel that you can develop more energy and urgency, but conviction that you're on the right track. But it could just be that this event is going to give you the confidence to refresh your personal appearance, your look, your wardrobe, and why not if so? With Uranus feeding in, however, if you are thinking longer term, there could be a sense that what you're trying not only is new, it could be very different for you as well. And pushing yourself outside your comfort zone can actually be really exciting. However, if you do need to travel anywhere in terms of pursuing this self-expression, just be aware that with Mars being blocked by Saturn, there could be some obstacles that come up. Or if you need to get some new technology in, or set up a website, or speak to somebody and have some dialogue, energies might not quite flow at the speed you want. But if you can purely focus on what you can create, see this event, it's almost like the magician card in tarot. You're about to magic into reality a new and much more abundant and exciting version of yourself, but setting your intentions with the maximum amount of self-belief and confidence is very important to do that. So for once, you may have to put the looking after other people just a little bit more to one side. So Leo, this event occurs in the most spiritually dynamic part of your situation. Your sixth sense is absolutely amplified by this. If you're very intuitive, you read tarot cards, you're someone who's very skilled, also understanding people's moods and modes, not necessarily even through conversation, that part of your nature is going to be amped up quite considerably over the next month. But equally, if you're someone who lives in a much more physical reality, you're being asked not to ignore your instincts, your hunches, the shadow side of your nature. If you are dealing with a little bit of a challenge around your resources at the moment, I think Mars being in an opposition with Saturn can create some anxiety. But what Uranus is saying to you is don't underestimate how trying something completely different can actually prove to be not just giving you the thrill of being more experimental, it actually can be good for a fixed sign like a Leo, because if you do try something different, there's no guarantee it will pay off, but if it does, the rush will be absolutely considerable, and that will feed into the more sensitive vibe of this particular new moon and give you a great deal of reassurance and assertion about your more hidden and not yet quite openly displayed talents. So Virgo, this event occurs in your sector of friendship, social interaction, networking. The next month is going to be potentially very exciting for you. But you're going to want to feel at the heart of any kind of group or combination of people that you're in. whether it's professionally or personally, because Mars in your sign is strengthening your ego in a positive way. But you're also very aware of those people who might resist you, and not necessarily for entirely fair reasons, because of Saturn being in your 7th house. Your ability to see forwards and understand the trends that are going on in all different sorts of ways, whether it's fashion or music, you're really going to be on the money. But someone could feel a little bit jealous of that, a little bit pushed out. And because Mars is opposed by Saturn, it's a bit of a test. So as much as there are opportunities to network with people, I think it needs to be the right people. And if you encounter someone who, yes, they want to be part of your group or want you to be part of theirs, but it's all on their terms, they're not really the right person for you. And Uranus is really the significator, because Uranus is in the part of your situation urging you to absolutely resist any situation or person which doesn't speak back to you of a sense of authenticity. You're looking for a higher truth and could be quite rebellious about it. So this may be a time when you push back on some old friendships or connections, but some new and exciting people can be heading your way. So Libra, there's a unique paradox with this particular event, because the Sun's combination with the Moon is going to urge you to reach for the stars, set your intentions high, and really go for a target or a goal which means a lot to you, but just at the time when your physical vitality might actually be a bit suboptimal. And the reason for that is Mars in your 12th house of psychology, and also Saturn in your 6th house of physical health. So that particular aspect is quite tricky. So if you are going for a big target, like applying for a job, or you're trying to cultivate something better in your own business, it will be important to plan things so that you can execute whatever target you're reaching for in as productive way as possible. So for example, if you're looking for a job and there are maybe more than one options, just be aware of not pushing yourself too hard at this particular time. There's going to be other opportunities coming for you, I assure you. It's just for now, yes, people can become much more receptive to what you have to offer, may even celebrate your special qualities and talents. But we all have phases of the year where we may feel just a little bit less energized. And I think this is one for you. So as much as you can go for it and do spectacularly well, particularly if you are someone who uses your creativity or your caring instincts in some way, or it could be that an opportunity does come up in some kind of big institution like a hospital or in the community, particularly dealing with health or psychological needs. Those kind of roles I feel that you can really reach into at the moment. But if it's just about going for goals that are important to you, do pace yourself. You can go towards them, you can get them, but just don't go too hard beyond the available vitality you have. So Scorpio, because you're a fixed signs have a reputation of liking a degree of routine. But you could be someone who likes routine, but still likes to travel and do things that are quite adventurous and rugged. But you may just have a particular way of going about things that you keep fairly regulated. Now, what this new moon is asking you to do is actually look at whatever approach you normally take and find some kind of way to be more spontaneous. So even if that does go against the grain a little bit, it actually can be really cathartic. Also, because Mars, your traditional ruler, is in a very friendly and interactive part of your situation, your links to others can be augmented well, or can they? Because if in a romantic situation you're wanting to do something that's a bit more daring, and your partner with Saturn in your 5th house wants you both to just keep to the program, that actually could prove to be a little bit suffocating and a little bit frustrating. So if you can pursue something, whether it's a hobby, a study of knowledge, a travel plan, Anything to do with philosophies will really intrigue you at this time. I feel the next 3 or 4 weeks is going to see your curiosity really amped up. And with Neptune in a beautiful alliance to the Sun and the Moon, if you are single and you're connecting to someone who's different and new, Uranus in your 7th house of relating, and this person maybe comes from a different cultural background or has travelled to places you've never had, have the opportunity to, you can share those experiences, but this becomes something that's very gratifying between the two of you. So I think what's in store for you over the next 3 or 4 weeks, if you seize the opportunity, is a real sense of excitement. So Sagittarius, the Sun and the Moon combine in the 8th house, which can be to do with very deep transformations in a more emotional context, the things that make way in our lives but can be replaced by something new and fresh. If there is something that you feel you need to cut the cords on, this is a great chance to think about that. If you're attracted to astrology because it has a bit more of a mathematical basis, you may be surprised by finding some other divinational approaches calling out to you. The appeal of mysticism, for example, really can be quite compelling over the next month. In a more practical way, the 8th house can be about the things that we share, particularly long-term finances. But Mars at the moment, which has a real echo of influence to the 8th house because it's the traditional rule of the sign of Scorpio, very 8th house, that's in a very dominant part of your situation at the moment. And that side of you that's prepared to take on responsibility or assert yourself is strong. So in a financial matter, if there is somebody that you need to speak to, particularly about a property issue, this could be a time when you're quite determined to get something to unfold as you want. Just be aware that with Saturn providing resistance to Mars, it might not power along quite at the pace you would like. That said, Uranus is in the part of your situation all to do with innovation. The more you can think outside the box in terms of your spiritual, emotional, psychological or financial situations, the more you're going to enjoy this particular new moon. So Capricorn, one of the things that this new moon provides an opportunity for your sign in particular to do is to celebrate the things you have in common rather than the things that make you different to others. So that mutuality, finding that point of harmony is really going to be a wonderful thing to embrace. Now Mars, the planet of drive, is in a very free-spirited part of your situation at the moment, to do with independence, to be honest. So this new moon could throw up a challenge if you're in a relationship which isn't meeting your relationship needs. And in that case, Mars is pushing you to separate yourself and to create freedom. But because Saturn is in opposition, there could be some intense discussions. What Uranus brings to the party, the celestial party, is an urging to be open-minded and in many respects not to hold on to something simply because it would give you a sense of security. So you can definitely find points of agreement, the things to celebrate you have in common, but you could become more conscious of what you don't have. So for example, if you're single, the desire for a relationship, if it's something that you do yearn for, could be amplified. And with Mars in your 9th house, in a relationship with Saturn in your 3rd, if you decided that you were going to go to a meet-up event and there's lots of different types of people there, I think that would be a very good way to try to create some more interaction with others. So Aquarius, this new moon emphasizes the practical dimension of your situation. Often for many of us, that is our home. If you're anything like me, if I turn this camera around and you could see the chaos that's going on the settee of clothes that need to be put away into different drawers, you will know that this new moon is one that I need to relate to in terms of getting more tickety-boo when it comes to home and domestic organisation. But if you're someone who actually has your home life running like a well-oiled machine, but it is you that drives the project. And every time you go to the loo, there is an empty toilet roll carton there that you collect and take to the recycling. This may be a time when you would like to ask the other people you share your home with to show a bit more in terms of contributing to the chores. So that's the home, very Cancerian. The moon in Cancer, we want to feel at ease and comfortable. So that order, it may not be a very sexy subject, I really apologise, but you can bring a greater sense of order. Now, if you're someone who's all over all of that, everyone's making a contribution, you're thinking, Patrick, this is not for me at all. But the thing is, all of us can always discover everything almost every day, particularly with the internet, in terms of snippets of information. And the sixth house is also about our physical health. So whether it's a nutrient, whether it's a particular formula for a recipe for a particular meal, there's always some information that we can gain that can augment the order and the efficiency and the purity of that existence. As I said, I apologise, very, very apparently unsexy. But if you really love cooking, like I do, for example, and you have something different, it's quite gratifying, because possibly like us, you have your favourites that you stick to, but trying something different can really be nice. And so finding small but important marginal gains, it's a phrase that came out of the Tour de France, isn't it, where, you know, the performance of the athletes would be modified because they measure the amount of sleep, they measure the amount of calories that are going into their body, measure the amount of water. It's all very, very scientific. But if you change 5, 6 or 7 things a little bit, you can actually get quite a big shift. So just getting that greater order could really be helpful. And because your traditional ruler, Saturn, is imposing itself on the more free-spirited and rebellious energies of Mars, it may be that you could take this approach to getting your accounts up to date, clearing up the paperwork, doing a bit of shredding, getting some do-it-yourself tasks that have been put to one side up to speed. Also, the sixth house, traditional astrology, very much about pets. So if you're someone who would really love the idea of having a new furry friend in your abode, you may strongly consider it over the next 4 weeks. If you've already got one, you could find yourself doing their annual inoculations and getting them checked out. So, as I said, not necessarily the sexiest set of influences, but remember, you still do have Venus and Mercury in your 7th house. So it's also possible that some kind of connection in a romantic context could come through a very practical location, yes, even the water tower or the photocopier. So Pisces, this is a gorgeous new moon for you. And of course, it's always very good because the 5th house is about self-expression, joys, where we can socialise, where we can have fun, where we can celebrate our children's pursuits if we have them. And it can also be to do with romance, because Neptune, your ruler, is feeding into this event. Your instinctive ability to read events really is going to be heightened. But also there can be something that happens very quickly that's unplanned, like a last-minute invitation, with Uranus providing a flash of light and stimulation. But, of course, Mars is in your 7th house, and it is opposed by Saturn in your sign. That can inhibit, it can perhaps just get in the way a little bit of going with the flow. So, for example, if someone does invite you to do something, and there's part of you that thinks, do you know, I just don't really have a lot of energy to go for it at the moment, I could really understand it, particularly if your sun is at the start or your ascendant is right at the start of Pisces. But if you can push yourself, you might be surprised by the connections you could make. Friendships, not necessarily romantic, but certainly there's a lot about your chart at the moment to like, despite the resistance the Saturn is creating.